Am I audible, sir?
Yes, please continue.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, a very warm welcome to this 2 days online international conference. This international conference is on global trend in English language, literature and linguistics 2021. This is organized by Research Culture Society, School of Languages and Linguistics and Literature, EU, English Literature Club, and sponsored by Scientific Research Association. Today, we are here to for this inaugural session, and we have two wonderful speakers. Before that, there is an introductory session to the organizers, so you can play the video.
Warm greetings to all. Research Culture Society is a government-registered scientific research organization. Society is working for the research community at national and international level to impart quality and non-profitable services. Our members are scholarly educationists, how their work can contribute to the betterment of our present and future generations. Research Culture Society is conducting conferences, seminars, symposiums, workshops, training, and development programs on different themes. Society has organized 100 plus educational programs successfully at national and international level in association with different educational institutions. Also published selected research papers as journal special issues and book proceedings. Society is running international level referred, peer-reviewed journals with ISSN and books publication with ISBN. Educational institutions, colleges, universities are being welcomed for Memorandum of Understanding and collaboration to organize events. Society is promoting and sponsoring educational events as well as publishing research work in collaboration. The Society also offers membership. The journals associated with Research Culture Society are referred, indexed, and with high impact factor. Society journals are publishing research papers, articles in all major fields and subjects related to sciences, health sciences, engineering, agriculture, pharmacy, commerce, management, social sciences, arts, humanities, education, law and life skills. Journals provide publications and digital identification with a nominal processing charge. Research Culture Society also provides print and online book publications with ISBN. Society invites book publication in all study subjects and categories. Thesis converted into book and conference proceedings publication also available. Research Culture Society arranges special lectures on soft skills, communication skills, personality development, behavior improvement, human resource development, career development, general knowledge improvement, environmental issues, and improvement, etc. in different institutions, colleges, universities, and schools. The Society bestows excellence and achievement awards in different categories as US Awards, SRA Awards. Thank you. For further details, visit our website.
Well, today in this inaugural session, we have two wonderful speakers. First of all, we would like to present a short video around which was presented for 3 minutes as the introductory session for the organizing committee. And our first speaker is Dr. Andi Asrifan from Indonesia. Dr. Andi Asrifan is a lecturer in the Faculty of Teachers Training and Education, Universities, Muhammadiyah Rang Rapin, UMS Rapang in South Sulawesi, Indonesia. He is also the head of Students and Alumni Affairs of Universities, UMS Rapang. He received his PhD Language Education concentration in English languages and MPD Masters Pendidikan Masters of Education from the State University of Makassar, South Sulawesi, Indonesia in 2018 and 2011 respectively. He received his bachelor's degree SBT in the Faculty of Teachers Training and Education from Universitas Muhammadiyah Parepare, South Sulawesi, Indonesia in 2007. He got a sandwich-like scholarship at Northern Illinois University, they called ILUSA in 2015. He has published some research articles in leading journals and conference proceedings, including Scopus and Thomson Reuters. His research interest is in English language teaching, ELT, ESP, linguistics, and technology in education. He is a full member of Himpunan Penerjemah Indonesia, Association of Indonesian Translator. It's PI 0119 3005. He is also the member of Literate Cambridge Online Language Learning Research Network, OLLREN. I welcome you, sir. The floor is all yours. The audience is all yours. Please enlighten us with your wonderful speech.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Let me share my screen. Okay. Is it visible there, Mom?
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're visible as well as you're very much audible to us. You can start with the presentation.
Of my video, just afraid that will be having this in my presentation when I delivered my presentation in Pakistan. So there are national conference on global trends in English language, literature, and linguistic. Um, for this session, I will share about one of the component in my dissertation study a couple years ago. That's about the multiple intelligence and the way of teaching. In this case, I will share some teaching activity, teaching material, and instructional strategy in our classroom. Again, thank you so much for the RCS event program manager and in Research Culture Society, and my sister Professor Tahara for this information to join this wonderful event today. Let me start with some problem that we found in this COVID in this area, especially in COVID-19. Actually, we have two problems, main problem here. We face the education 4.0, and then we face also the pandemic COVID-19. So there are many problems that we found in our classroom, especially for the teacher who are uh, uh, familiar with the technology, or the student who are unfamiliar with using technology, or some of them also cannot access the good internet or device to join our class. So uh, that's why I just remind you you all that we have a full pace right now. We when we starting in the education 1.0, we still remember that the this space focus on teacher center. That's authoritarian. The student is the passive recipient. The teacher center system, and the teacher give knowledge as a absolute leader in the classroom, and the technology is forbidden in the classroom. And in education 2.0, the focus here is the learner as a receptacle of knowledge, where the communication and the collaboration are starting to grow, exam-based approach, and the result is examination, memorizing of knowledge. And an underestimate a student-centered approach is talk about, but do not replace it. And then some people think they stop talking about the teaching and they talk about learning and learning outcome, but they are still on the paper. And the school are still talking about hour of teaching, but we should talk about hour of learning. That's the focus when we were in education 2.0. And then in education 3.0, the teacher is the facilitator, where the student-centered approach, the teacher is transformed into the coordinator or facilitator, advisor, learner, and the practice guide. And then the student is researching. Flipped classroom method apply, more dialogue, technology is everywhere, and the student is self-learning and everywhere, and the classic style classroom no longer exists. And a lesson plan are now called learning plan. And then here we are now in education 4.0, where the learner is a connector, creator, and constructivist. Whenever and wherever flipped classroom apply interactive practical exercise face to face, and then learning is done at home or outside the school, while in the school student develop the skill, and then development of personalized teaching and learning, and then learning plan are now called creativity plan. And the technology is free and all easily accessible, and then increase use of virtual reality, innovation. We still remember, I think, the revised Bloom taxonomy right now. The top of the triangle is creating. So that's why the objective of our teaching is how to invite the student to create something based on our the objective of our class. So therefore, a need for continuous training and development of new knowledge and skill by all. So what we will cover today for maybe 20 to 25 minutes. The first one is guideline for designing effective teaching material, especially in English. And then the second is the eight multiple intelligence and some potential career that can support our student future. And then some useful ICT tool in education. And then the last is the way of teaching. So here, the very simple one in guideline for designing effective teaching material, we have 6 factors that should be considered here. The first one is a learner. We have to see the student need analysis. In this case, maybe some of teacher here or researchers or lecturer uh, 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 research before starting the classroom. We do the research, for example, in R&D, research and development. So that's why in the first step is we have to now the need analysis or the target needs or the learning needs of the student, and then we have to know the knowledge of the learner. So that's why this point will be more discussed in the next slide. And then we have to know their experiences, the first language, level of literacy, aspiration, interest, and purposes. And then the second component is the curriculum in the context. Here the value to be taught, goal, and the objective. And then the resources and the facility, facility. The teacher must be realistic. Access to resources will impact on decision in material design. And then personal confidence and competence, knowledge, experience, attitude, and how to use the guideline correctly that can support our data. And then copyright competence, restriction, implementation, and awareness. And the last is time. How much time should be used to share the material, to working in a team, and organizing the material? And then the guideline here, uh, the first ELT or EST, English as language teaching material should be contextualized. The material should be stimulate interaction and be generative. ELT material should encourage learner to develop learning skill and strategy, and then should be allow for the focus on form as well as the function. And then the material should offer opportunity for integrated language use. ELT material should be authentic. Authentic here, the material should be must be written, read, and spoken, and the tasks have to be authentic. And then ELT material should link to each other to develop a progression of skills, understanding, and language item. So here the material should be connected with other material previously done, and then material have to have organization, and then must be focused on the specific learning goal, and then must be created a response in an earlier learning. And then ELT material should be attractive. That's physical appearance, user friendliness, durability, ability to be reproduced. And then the ELT material should have appropriate instruction. That instruction should be effective. Instruction should be clear. Instruction in appropriate language. And then the last ELT material should be flexible. That's we use the material which allow both the teacher student to make choices. The material design should be over flexibility. The material should be permit teacher to choose which procedure to apply. So let's focus on one of the component that should be considered in the part of in the component of learn itself. That's we have to now the learner knowledge or potential in designing the effective material. One of them is multiple intelligence. I think all the participants here uh, has now about the opinion from the Huargana. That's the expert uh, about the expert theory in multiple intelligence, where the multiple intelligence based on Huargana, that each person has a type of intelligence. They are developed to a different degree. They are potential capability to be everyone can activate by doing right activity. And the level of their development depends on the chance available in the specific culture or on the decision taken by people and their family or the teacher. And we're going to show that one's intelligence is multidimensional and dynamic. And it's not only about the logical and linguistic comprehension, which is usually tested at school. And then our task here, how to develop our student intelligence and also find out what kind of activity that can make their learning easier and more enjoyable to join our class. This is our we highlighted here that the our task, not only teacher but all the educators. So how to help our student join in our class to make their learning easier and more enjoyable. So what kind of a multiple intelligence and some potential career? There are eight. The first one is word smart, logic or number smart, picture smart, body smart, music smart, people smart, self smart, and nature smart. Let's come. I take one example here to make the time efficiently. So in in the area of word smart or linguistic intelligence, exactly she or he will strong in reading, writing, telling story, memorizing date, and thinking in word. And then exactly they love to read, write, tell story, talk, memorize, work in puzzle. And then they learn best through reading, hearing, and seeing words, speaking, writing, discussing, and debating. And then here's some the famous example people that has that's strong in this area. Edgar Allan Poe, Maya Angelou, Rick Riordan, and Shakespeare. And then if we see this potential in our student, we can instruct them or guide them or advise them to sharpen their potential career to be lawyer after graduating from our school in senior high school or at university or college, to be a lawyer, editor, interpreter, translator, journalist, playwright, poet, public relation reporter, teacher, historian, and librarian. So that's the same with some area, the other area like in logic, they will strong in math, reasoning, logic, problem solving. And then exactly she or he will learn best through working with pattern and relationship, classifying, categorizing, working with the abstract. So we can suggest them to choose their possible department in university or in a college, to be accountant, analyze, investment, broker, lawyer, or a chemist, permission, or a computer programmer, engineer, inventor, researcher, or city planner. The next one, the next question: how to support or sharpen their intelligence for each student. So here are some useful ICT tool in education that can support their potential intelligence. Actually, if we find or search in Google, there are 100 or maybe almost 1,000 of platform that can support our classroom to help us delivering our subject. So, but we cannot use all of them, but we can classify them and then help us based on the objective that we are going to use them to our classroom. We can classify them into the progress monitoring and data management. We can classify them into a video conferencing and communication tool like a Zoom that we are using now. We can classify them into homework management and online learning management system or LMS, or we can classify them into content specific tool, or we can classify them into four components of the objective of teaching: didactic or being taught, like online learning, LinkedIn learning, future learn, Udemy, or Coursera, edX, or in discovering or find out for oneself, like web resource, classifying them into some platform in search engine, browser, translator, or ebook, or doing or engaging in activity, or the last in discourse or interacting with other. Um, Unconsciously, I think someone who has smartphone, iPad, iPhone, or Android, I think unconsciously we usually use them almost every minute, I think. For example, there are some application that can support in our intrapersonal, like WordPress. If we sometimes the people who have idea or dream or some uh, uh, bad feeling or like they can write or share their feeling in WordPress, and then write like poem or some short story like that, or in interpersonal like Skype, Facebook, in visual spatial, Google Earth, for example, musical. We can use Animoto or singing finger. In linguistic, we can use some, for example, Audible, iMovie, or in logical mathematical, we have also geometry path or math doodle or Diego. And then the question is, why should we use ICT tool? I think we cannot ignore that there are many research that prove that using ICT tool in our classroom aids student educational success. ICT tool improves student memory of new information, help them better understand complex instruction, and ensure their comprehension. And then they make learning more enjoyable and foster student concentration. And the student take more responsibility for what they learn while using ICT tool, especially when they use them for the project. And technology change rapidly and is omnipresent, showing students how to use ICT tool for practical purposes. We reassure their success in the future professional development. So here are some specific application that can support their intelligence area. In mathematical intelligence, the characteristic here, they work in puzzle, mind map, and then timeline. So we can use maybe jigsawplanet.com to invite this application to our classroom, Public.com or timetoast.com. Or and then one of the characteristics in this area is working in diagram and computer games, so we can use I think PowerPoint is more useful. We can design some interesting flyer poster, and then also we can edit some video, the very simple video, I think, better, and then yeah, they're very simple, I think. And then in computer game, we can use purposegame.com. In other hand, in linguistic intelligence, so the characteristic here, they love to work in crosswalk or reading or doing the vocabulary exercises. We can invite learning apps.org, or we can download. There are a hundred or 1,000 and maybe almost a million of books in big in bok.asia, or in genlib.trust.ec, or in spellingcity.com. In speaking, we can invite voki.com, foki.com. In writing, I think we can use phrasey.com to design some interesting slide to express their writing. In visual intelligence, the characters here doing in image or doing the poster, a map, and some video. So Blockster, Tripline.net, or Microsoft Video Story, or I think there are many applications that can help us in editing video, not only by using computer that we can edit the video, but now we can use some application through our smartphone. And then in bodily, the characters here, they making think, acting, scenarios and situation, eye hand coordination, and then video production. So public jigsawplanet.com, YouTube also, exactly. For example, in my university, you know that we are the social distancing. So if I teach them in one of computing and writing to describe something, so I just instruct them to design, so to design the video, for example, in how to cook the traditional cake in Bugis. In Bugis is one of the tribe in South Sulawesi, Indonesia. And then after that, they record themselves starting introduce the ingredients, and then how to cook, and then after that how to serve the meal. And then after recording, they upload it in YouTube, and then they share to their classmates. And then pzap.com, in emotional intelligence, the characteristic here: peer mediation, role play, moral dilemma discussion. So we can use Skype, Blogster, or Sky or Windows Media Flyer, or in intrapersonal, so that's independent study or self reflection. And then in musical, that's about the listening, and then the music based activity. And the last in naturalistic. So the characteristic here: survey of flora and fauna, field notes, and then experiences of natural world and environmental project. So blogster.com, I think, and then some Google Earth, in this case, visiting different part of the world with virtual map. So the last, the way of teaching. I just give example here in the area of linguistic intelligence. So the teaching activity here, we can combine lecture, discussion, or word game, storytelling, or choral reading, or journal writing, and then we can prepare some books, or tape recorder, or typewriter, or stamp set, or book on tape. And then some instructional strategy that can lead us in this area. For example, we share the book, and then we instruct them to please read about this one, and then we give some vision about the story, for example. And then after reading about the story, and then we instruct them to write based on their understanding. And then after that, we invite them to one by one to to talk about what they are writing, for example, the message from the story. And then the other student have to listen about it. And then still different instruction for another area of intelligence. So here, where we can combine the two grand theory, the Huargan multiple intelligence, and then uh, uh, the Bloom taxonomy. So in verbal linguistic, where we combine this theory in remembering, we can instruct them, learn line the dialogue for the performance. In understanding, please fill in the characterization sheet for the young character in applying. Please write the letter to the character outside the play, explaining the circumstance of the life at the time of your play. In analyzing, please identify the key feature of the play written in the style of play you are studying. In evaluating, please write a review of the play from the point of view and the audience member. And in creating, write a monologue of your character that exists independently from the script. Here one unit that can help us, especially in tasks, in sharing the tasks, the homework, where we combine the six thinking level in Bloom taxonomy, and then Howard Gardner multiple intelligence. So the next question is how to measure the student multiple intelligence. There are some platforms that can help us to know the student intelligence, or our intelligence. We can feel free to access in literacy.net.org, or test yourself, psychotest.com, or in personality max uh, .com, or we can download this one from the Google Play in multiple intelligence tests. I think this one we can instruct our student and then share the results, so we can know their their uh, 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 area that they are strong in. Beside, we can also use the observation. So I think this enough for my presentation today. Before I close, I have a question several week ago when I delivered the conference in Indonesia, that one of the teacher asked me, can the technology replace the teacher? So I respond that it is a much known fact, that is this is in the modern age. The technology is replacing almost everything, and then we don't need paper and pen as a software can be used to write on. We do not need to physical book, because on the event we have free to access ebook and PDF. So yeah, I think there are many teacher raise a question. This is the modern technology replace teacher too. Is this technology sophisticated enough to teach children the way the virtual teacher too? Is the need of human teacher being eliminated? So everyone has a different perception, I think. And then, but what I believe is that the answer to the question is a big no. Technology cannot replace the teacher. Technology is merely an argumentation to a teacher. It can help the process of learning, but it certainly cannot replace the role of the teacher. Technology can make it easy to get educated by sitting at home, but that education too is provided by the teacher. We underline this one. Even in online course, we see the teacher are necessary to give a lecture, whether in the form of video tutorial, Zoom session, or Skype session, or WebEx session. Students still need uh, uh, learn computer to operate those online sessions, which of course are taught by the teacher. And then it is significantly what we remember. A teacher is more than just a facilitator of knowledge. A teacher also act as a guide, as a mentor, and an aspiration to the student, and a role that cannot be replaced by the technology of any kind. Taking critical skill into account, like decision making, time management, and then our student needs a teacher. So technology cannot teach these human skill, and then it much obviously that technology is assisting student in their learning, and it is playing a crucial role in the field of education. But as of now, it doesn't have the power to replace the teacher, because human interaction cannot be replaced by the computer, and human skill cannot be taught by technology. Thank you so much. Assalamualaikum and good afternoon.
Walaikum assalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Now, we that was a very wonderful presentation by Dr. Asifan on why should we use ICT tools, logical mathematical intelligence, and different ways of teaching in the classroom activities. Thank you, sir. Next, we call
Thank you.
upon yes, sir. Next, we call upon our next keynote speaker for the day, Dr. Tahara Khanam S. She is the associate professor and head, Department of Postgraduate English, Alameen Arts, Science, and Commerce College, Bangalore, Karnataka, India. Dr. Tahara Khanam is working as the humanitarian person, and she's serving as a role model and an epitome of willpower and hard work. She has completed her PhD in English language teaching November 2018 from Mother Teresa Women's University, Kodaikanal, Tamil Nadu, India. She is serving as a National Joint Secretary at National Child and Women Development Council. She's serving as a Country Director, India and Advisory Board at African Global Development for Positive Change Initiative, and she is serving as a country director India officer for the moment International News, Cairo, Egypt. She is a board of examiner for postgraduate English at Bangalore Central University, Bangalore, Karnataka, India for 2019 to 2021. She is a researcher, social activist, public speaker, soft skill trainer, writer, reviewer, blogger, poster, poet, editor, editorial board member in international peer-reviewed online open access multidisciplinary journal. She is serving as a resource person, keynote speaker, and international and national levels. She served as a PhD examiner, adjudication panel, and thesis evaluator at various universities in India. She has counted multiple workshops, seminar, and vocational programs. She has participated in more than 80 national and international seminars, webinars, and training programs. She has conducted more than 80 workshops. She has published many research articles. She has delivered lectures on academics and other various topics. She has received multiple awards and accolades and has been a jury member in international and national conquest. To add more to the glory to her achievements, the Arab Translator Association ARTA on May 8, 2021 recognized Dr. Tahara's outstanding achievement, honored her among 128 Arab and foreign outstanding figures. The audience is all yours, ma'am. Please enlighten us with your wonderful presentation.
Thank you, Bushra. Thanks for the wonderful introduction. Hope I'm audible. Greetings, everyone. I thank the Research Culture Society for giving me this prestigious opportunity as a keynote speaker on international conference that is on global trends in English language, literature, and linguistics. Today, my topic is language, mind, and brain in psycholinguistics. So when it comes as language, mind, and brain, we must be knowing that the language has interconnection with the mind. And the language, what we teach, what we speak, it's all connected. As an educator, we should be knowing, or as a researcher, we should be knowing that how we should use the psycholinguistics, how should we use the language in teaching, because it is at most important. Likewise here, the outline for today is about the topics introduction, language, thought and culture, language and the brain, and the conclusion. Psycholinguistics is often defined as the study of language and the mind. Psycholinguistics devise ways of finding how it works. There are two main sources. The first one is observation of spontaneous utterances, and the second one is psycholinguistics experiments. The relationship of language, thought, and culture is a topic that is central to psycholinguistics. People throughout the ages have wondered whether speech or language is necessary for thought. Now, for example, when we talk about the relationship of language and thought and culture, which has become the main integral part of psycholinguistics, we shall have these questions, the following questions here. Can we think without language is the question. Does language influence culture? Does language affect our perception of nature? Does language affect our view of society and world? So now the same questions are applicable to our students as well. As researchers and educators, when we study all these criteria, it becomes easy for us to be more approachable to the students in the classroom. Language, thought, and culture. There are a number of formulations that idea can take. 4 principal formulations, some are overlapping concerning the relationship of language, thought, and culture, which have been expressed over these centuries, which have been mentioned here. The first one is speech is essential for thought. The psychologists Watson, Skinner, and Stats, the linguists Bloomfield and Lieberman, and the philosophers like Ryle and Cohen are many here to mention, but a few of the many who advocated such a conception. They claim that the thought that develops as a kind of speech from speaking loud, you start to speak subvocally or make internal articulations. It is this subvocal or internal speech which is thought. Thus, thought is defined as subvocal speech or behavior and not something mental, as in the traditional view of psychology. The following quotation characterizes the theory that thought originates from uttered speech. B.F. Skinner mentioned the simplest and most satisfactory view is that thought is simply behavior, verbal or non-verbal, covert or overt. It is not some mysterious process responsible for a behavior, but the very behavior itself in all the complexity of its controlling relations with respect to both man, the behavior, and the environment in which he lives. The next theory, language is essential for thought. Theorists such as Sapir, Wolff, and Vygotsky hold that the language system with its rules or vocabulary necessary, it is mainly necessary for thought. So this theory is broader than the prior theory, which held that thought was derived from speech production. Since it encompasses all of language, both speech production and speech understanding. So let's see this quotation to get some idea of the scope of this theory, which has been given by Edward Sapir. The writer, for one is strongly, is strongly of the opinion that the feeling entertained by so many that they can think or even reason without language is an illusion. The third theory here, language determines or shapes our perception of nature. Again, Wolff, Sapir, Korzybski, and others, they have the view that one's knowledge of vocabulary or syntax influences one's perception and understanding of nature. Here, Philip Frank, he said, Einstein's relativity of time is a reform in semantics, not in metaphysics. And then the language, the theory 4 is language determines or shapes our culture's worldview. Some theorists believe that even if language is somewhat that was considered as distinct from thought, nevertheless, knowing a language will itself condition and influence one's cultural, social beliefs or views of the world. So here, Alfred Korzybski, he mentioned a language, any language, has its bottom certain metaphysics which ascribe, consciously or unconsciously, some sort of structure to this world. Our old mythologies ascribed anthropomorphic structure to the world, and of course, under such a delusion, The primitives built up a language to picture such a world and give it a subject-predicate form. Next is here, language and the brain. To know about this, we should know the general brain structure and function. The question here is, why do we have body preferences? Here, there are some examples. Imagine that you are in a playground and there is a ball at your feet. Now, the listeners can imagine this. Someone calls out, kick it. Imagine now kicking it really hard. Now, suppose the ball is at your feet again and someone calls out, pick it up and throw it to me. Imagine now throwing that ball. Now, imagine you are sitting in the doctor's clinic facing the door into the doctor's room. You hear some people talking in the room, but you can't make out what they are saying. So you strain to hear. You turn your head slightly towards the door. Now you can make out what is being said. Now, which foot did you use? Which hand did you use? And which side of your head did you turn? I just hope that the listeners paid attention to these lines. Because now this is again related to the psycholinguistics. See, when I described you about this, when you have just listened to me, this is the way when we narrate about the brain structure and function to the students, we should actually narrate them. And this is the technicalities we should utilize in our everyday teaching. So why do we have such preferences? The answer lies in the brain, its structure and its function. Of course, here, the language areas and their functioning. Now, when it comes to the language areas and its functioning, we should know about the Broca's area, the motor area, and speech production. Paul Broca was a French pathologist and neurosurgeon who made this first great discovery regarding brain and language. He discovered a certain area of the cortex that is involved with the production of speech. That part of the cortex bears name, Broca's area. Broca further noted that the speech area is adjacent to the region of the motor cortex, which is given here, which controls the movement of the muscles of the articulators of speech, the tongue, lips, jaw, soft palate, vocal cords, etc. He said that the speech is formulated in Broca's area and then articulate through the motor area. Now comes Wernicke's area, the auditory area and speech understanding. Karl Wernicke, he is a German neurologist. In considering that Broca's speech area was near that part of the brain which involves areas which control the articulators of speech, reasoned that in the same way, two other areas of brain must similarly be involved in the process of speech comprehension. In his research, he discovered near the part of the cortex in the temporal lobe, which receives auditory stimuli, an area which was involved the understanding of speech. So Wernicke hypothesized that this area, later named Wernicke's area, must in some way be connected to the auditory area. Later research showed that these areas are indeed connected by fibers of the word or the term called arcuate fasciculus. So now here, this is the related to the speed and reading process. And By looking into this and by the previous slide, we came to know about what can be utilized to have this reading process. And the next one here is some of the neutral pathways that are considered to be involved in the processing of spoken language. That is speech production. The basic structure of the utterance is thought to be generated in Wernicke's area and is sent to Broca's area for encoding. The motor program is then passed on to the adjacent motor area, which governs the articulatory organs. Reading aloud, the written form is first received by the visual cortex, then transmitted via the angular gyrus to Wernicke's area, where it is thought to be associated with the auditory representation. Finally, speech comprehension. The signals arrive in the auditory cortex from the ear and are transformed to the adjacent Wernicke's area, where they are interpreted. Typical language functions. While the left hemisphere is involved in most language tasks, recent evidence indicates that the right hemisphere too is involved in language processing, said by Beeman and Schiavello. When it comes to word semantics, the right hemisphere has been found to be more adept at processing single lexical items and the semantic relations between them, while it is the left hemisphere that combines syntactic, semantic, and pragmatic information into a conceptual representation of a sentence, said by Faust. Now we should know that how to understand the discourse and other minds. So patients with right hemisphere damage have impairments concerning narrative script, interpretation, inferential processing, integration of information, or conceptualization of the unit as a whole, construction of new conceptual models and inferences about another person's beliefs and intentions. So now this is about the right hemisphere damage, which has been told by Stemmer and Joannet. And how about the metaphor? The core semantic coding of the right hemisphere may also relate to the ability of this hemisphere to understand metaphor. So this is related to the discourse studies and the use of language. So here it has been told that the right hemisphere can take over left hemisphere functions. There is growing evidence that damage to language areas in the left hemisphere of young children is compensated for with the right hemisphere taking over the requisition of language. This sometimes happens with adults as well, while the extent of functional plasticity is not yet established. It is clear that the right hemisphere is capable of taking over left hemisphere functions. The use of the bilingual brain in the language. Now here, people often acquire more than one language. Recent neurolinguistic research has shown growing interest in how bilinguals represent different languages in the brain. Two central issues have been focused of research: whether different languages are represented in the different hemispheres of the brain, and if the age and what a language is learned is related to the lateralization. We can see the results are not consistent on any question here. But the first question, let us see: is there hemispheric specialization for languages? The first question here. For this question, the studies showing right hemisphere involvement, a case has been used to suggest that there is a clear neuroanatomical dissociation between the languages. So now here it has been told by Gomez, Tortosa, Martin, then Gaviria, Charvel, and Osman. So they have done the research on this about the hemispheric specialization for languages. And now the studies which shows there is no difference. So Galloway and Scarsilla in a Spanish-English dichotic listening study found no evidence for the right hemisphere being involved more in the initial stages of informal adult second language acquisition. The second question here is, does the language at which a second language is learned related to lateralization? Now here, Kim, Relkin, Lee, and Hershik used functional magnetic resonance imaging, that is called as MRI, and found in a silent reading task that within Broca's area, a second language acquired in adulthood is spatially separated from the native language, while the native and the second languages tend to be represented those to one another when both languages are acquired in early life. So by knowing about the bilingual brain, so we just talked that how the language is being used, how we use the second language acquisition, but we should know about the background of it, about the specialization of the languages, how it has been produced, what is the functioning role of the brain with the connected with the language. For the sake of this, methods investigating brain and language here, for example, the high-tech methods, that is the CAT, EET, MRI, and ERPs, which has been given here. That is the definitions or the extended forms. The PET stands for positron emission tomography. MRI stands for magnetic resonance imaging. ERP, event related to potentials. So in recent years, revolutionary new methods have been developed, which lend themselves nicely to the study of language and the brain. These involve powerful new techniques in imaging, which has been mentioned here. So all of these techniques, which is involved in the brain as it is without surgery or any other invasive procedure, and observe the actual functioning of the brain in real time. As such, they may be used with normal persons as well as those with the brain problems, those who have the problem in language issues, or those who are not able to speak. So by studying this about the brain, language, and culture, as an educator, we can try to help our students. We can try to be with them as facilitator. When the psycholinguistics is involved to analyze the language aspects, if the student is not involved in the language speaking skills or writing skills or reading skills, we cannot just shout at them. We cannot just say that he is dull, or we cannot just say that they are not attentive in the class. Any faculty member or even any person should be knowing the background of all this, so that the class would be very versatile and the students would get the benefit out of it. And if we can help our students, if they have some issues in learning the language, we can just address them, or we can just suggest them to visit a doctor, or we can just try them with other methods. Of course, in the post-pandemic era, as the language teachers, we teach language, linguistics, and literature. The literature can be in the film text form. The literature can be in the form of a written text. It can be in the form of poetry. how it can be used. Is technology sufficient to teach in the classroom? What is the role of the teacher? What is the role of the student? Just by thinking that we have to complete the portion, or just by thinking that this is the deadline given to the final exams, we cannot just go ahead with some specific functioning as a robot or as a person without having empathy towards our student. When it comes to language, it has interconnectivity with other subjects too. A student who is confident in English language, linguistics, and literature can become an orator, can become a critical thinker, can become a master in his personal and social life too. So we should help such students who are having some issues related to language learning. So such disabilities should be found out by the faculty, and then it should be resolved. Because now we use the online classes. We can identify the students' behavior by seeing, by looking at their expressions. And if we find something is not normal, which we shouldn't consider as abnormal, so if something is not normal, we can speak to the students and we can just follow our own personal technicalities and personal techniques to resolve the issues. The teacher should become more empathetic than using only the technologies. Once again, I would say here, by knowing and by reading and by analyzing, doing a lot of research, we become the facilitators. Just by saying today is my class or today is this section and giving them some activities as assignments, it is not the part of the teacher's role. We have to even look after their mental health and physical health, which should definitely be related to the teaching as well. Conclusion here, it has only been considered in past 40 years that brain exploration has been furthered by the development of technologically advanced methods. With such methods, our knowledge of the brain and its functions have increased enormously, but we are still at a relatively primitive stage of scientific knowledge. So the coming decades of the new millennium will undoubtedly prove to be especially exciting in the development of technological methods for a more precise investigation of the brain and language. I conclude here. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, that was a very commendable presentation by Dr. Tahara Khanum on language, mind, and brain interconnections and need of language and culture. Connection with different bilingual brain language concepts such as CAT, PET, MRI, and ERPS. Thank you, ma'am, for your wonderful presentation. And with that, we come to the end of the inaugural session of this International Conference on Global Trends in English Language, Literature, and Linguistics. We had very wonderful speakers, Dr. Andi Asrafan and Dr. Tahara Khanum, for that presentation, for the wonderful presentation, is acknowledged. And today we have two presentation sessions, and we gonna rejoin at 1 o'clock for the presentation sessions. Till then, we have a break, so we'd rejoin. Please be ready with the PPT presentations, and have a break, and then we'll rejoin for this conference. Thank you.